This is Buying Miami, Life, Love, and Real Estate, and I am your host, JoAnne Jones. I'm a second-generation Miamian, and I am obsessed with real estate, and also living your best life here in the best city, Miami. Okay, so we're back for another episode of Buying Miami, Life, Love, and Real Estate, and today we are going to talk about the age-old question that us agents get all the time, everywhere, is how's the market? What's going on in the market? What's happening in the market? And it's a hard question to answer because Miami is set up of a bunch of little micro markets. So it's like, are you talking about single family homes in Pinecrest, or are you talking about oceanfront condos in Miami Beach, and are they built before 2000 or after 2000? So, I mean, it's a lot of information to have to process at any given time. So to break it down for us today, I have my sales manager from Compass, because, you know, we only have the best people at Compass. All right. And we have Dominique Duque, who, like, she knows numbers, spreadsheets. She studies this. She eats it for breakfast. She's always telling us what's going on and sending us a bunch of charts and stuff. And she's just is the expert of knowing what's going on in the market. And she has a fantastic way of explaining it from the micro to the macro. So I'm just going to kind of let her take the reins here. And Dominique, question for you. How's the market?
So I think, well, thank you for having me, John. First of all, I'm very excited to be here, share any information that could help both to other people. I think you kind of nailed it at the beginning when you said it's such a, it's not a generic question, especially in a place like Miami, where every piece of Miami is kind of different from each other. And I'm going to share my screen shortly, and you'll see how it varies by neighborhoods. It really varies by single family home or condos. It's a tale of two condos as well. There's the condos that were built after 2000 is one story, previous to 2000 is another story. So, there's a lot of variables, which is why I always say this is why it's so important to really, if you're a buyer to have, or even a seller, of course, to have somebody on your side, an agent, a seasoned real estate agent that really can break this down for you, that can really help you see this. Don't try to do it on your own, because I'm telling you, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and it still is extremely time consuming. You have to have certain software, certain programs, and it's not a generic thing, because if you go generic, then it's really going to confuse you. So I'm excited to share, our dynamic, because that's exactly the word that I always use to describe the Miami real estate market, our dynamic market has been doing, and how it's been evolving, because that's also what it's been doing. At the end of the day, I'll just start with something that to me is the most important as a Miami Beach native, seeing everything that's happened in the city in the past years, and also as a homeowner, to see that we're one of the only cities in the country, I believe, I dare to say the only, if not, I think there's one more, that for the last 11 years has continued appreciating. There's a lot to be said by that, right? So, gaining more and more value every year, no matter what's happening. So to see the values where they're at, to see the value of my property, where it's at compared to where it was 15 years ago when my husband and I bought it, is just astronomical. And even to see it go down like it did, because I bought in 2008. So obviously 2009 it tanked, but then what did it really matter? Because it was my home, right? Mm-hmm. So, and now it's worth more than it was.
No,
so
I love the buyers that are like, oh, I'm going to wait till the market softens a little bit and prices go down. I'm like, bitch, it's not going down. Okay. We're Miami. It's not going down. All right.
And by the way, even if it does, it did for me. So that's exactly what happened.
Okay, but it's like a monicum amount. And maybe if it goes down a lot, it's going to bounce back, because it's Miami. We're like one of the most dynamic cities in the country. Right. Like, everybody wants to be here. The market's not going down, people. It's not going down. Anyways.
But I want to play worst case scenario, because this story really resonates with a lot of people. So my story is a worst case scenario. And when we look at these numbers, you'll see that we're not even close to getting there, and we won't get there. When I bought my house in 2008, my husband was like, let's wait. The market is coming down. And I'm like, no, we need to buy our house now. We need to buy our house now. Bought the house. A year later, it was worth $120,000 less. I bought for $587,000. It was like in the 400s. But guess what? 3 years later, it was worth so much more. And I didn't take 1 year of spending money in rent, and I wouldn't have found that same house and I wouldn't have had that year to put it to where I wanted it to be. So do I regret it? Absolutely not. That house wouldn't have been available a year later.
No.
I would have spent all this money in both. And at the end of the day, where it's at right now is 5 times worth than where I bought it. So I always say, don't chase the market. When I was an agent, I had people that had chased the market for 2 cycles waiting for that drop and never bought anything. And so, right. So just, it's all about timing, where when you're ready to buy, family decisions that you need to make. You need a bigger house because you're having another child. Don't wait a year because it might come down this amount. No, go buy your home, right? Do the lifestyle that you deserve and do it now, and then things will adjust.
Yeah, I always say people don't buy because of the market. They buy because of life circumstances. And you enter the market wherever it is. So if you're a buyer, God willing, you enter at a buyer's market. If you're a seller, God willing, it's a seller's market. So being that there's so many micro markets, I'm interested to see, the presentation today to kind of understand, like, how do you make sense of it? And then when we finish the presentation, I want to have a conversation about how do buyers communicate with their agents to get the information they need to make an educated decision. So what you got, girl? I know you got some spreadsheets and some stuff. Bring it.
So overall, we're going to start with Miami-Dade County single family homes. And I'll just go, briefly over it. We won't get down into the nitty gritty. JoAnne, again, will share the presentation with you so that you can see these numbers. But homes for sale in the month of May, by the way, everything is based on the month of May since June hasn't closed out. We have an increase of 15.8% of inventory compared to last year, which is really what we were hoping and expecting for about a year ago. So that's great news. Homes closed in May 2023 is down 19.6% compared to last year. That was expected. 2021, 2022 were definitely the best years that Miami has ever seen. It was because of the pandemic. Will those years come back? I am not sure. At that velocity, people were moving here because they had a need. This was very expected, especially given the increase in mortgage rates. But I have some great news coming up. Okay. Homes placed under contract, this is something that we really look at because this is kind of predicting what's going to close and what the market is going to do in the near future. So it has increased 1.7% compared to last year in terms of homes that have gone under contract in the month of May. So that's great news. I'm not going to get too much into the chart because I know that some people can't see it, but just to explain it a little bit, what I did here is you're looking from 2008 all the way to this year. The light green line tells you about the inventory. The red line tells you about pending sales, and then the dark green tells you about closed sales. Just very high level. If you look at this, look at 2008, the year that I was just talking about, right? Which is when Miami really had one of the most difficult moments. Look how much inventory there was compared to where we're at right now. That's so I like showing this because some people think that the market is going to go back to that. And we are so far away and we will never go back to that this just seeing this visual can really explain to you historically, what the market has been doing.
So it looks like inventory is down, right? Would you agree? We need inventory.
We do need inventory. We definitely need inventory. But there's a lot more to it than that, a little bit more. And I'll show you in a second.
So would you say based on single family homes in Miami-Dade County as a whole, the macro market it kind of seems like it's more of a seller's market right now? Would you agree?
No, yes, 100%.
100% a seller's market.
100% seller's market. I'm going to show you the months of inventory in a second.
Now, again, I just want to say, just because it's a seller's market doesn't mean that you can't get a good deal in a seller's market. You can get an excellent deal in a seller's market because you never know the circumstances that the seller is buying under. So a lot kind of goes into it. It doesn't mean I'm not going to go out looking because it's a seller's market. No, you just got to, find the right seller. You only need one house or a property. So, just because it's a seller's market doesn't mean that you can't get a fantastic deal. But then again, that's why you have a good agent to help you kind of make sense of all of this. Okay, go.
That is correct. And there's always deals to be made no matter what the market is doing.
Always.
So here we're looking at average price per square foot for May 2023. The graph that I'm showing just again shows from 2008 all the way to right now. if you were to be looking at it, you can tell that we are really, pretty high up there, but yet slightly lower than where we were a year ago when the market was at its top, right? So down 3.1% compared to last year. That's really not a big difference, right? Like,
but I see it. It does feel a little bit less. Like I find myself working in the higher end luxury market, and it's, maybe last year it was 1,900 a square foot, and now it's 1,700 a square foot. But it's or last year it was like 1,850, and now you can get it for 1,750 a square foot. It's 3%, but it's a little bit softer.
Yeah, and we'll see a little bit more of that when we get into more details into each market. You'll notice that varies, of course. But overall, for Miami-Dade County single family homes, it's 3.1% compared to last year. So here is something that I find very interesting. So number one, months of inventory is 3. For those that don't know, 6 months of inventory is a neutral market. Anything below 6 months of inventory is considered a seller's market. Anything above 6 months of inventory is considered a buyer's market. And how that is calculated is based on the number of listings that are active divided by the number of sales. How long will it take to sell it all out? And it's a good indicator of where the market, quote unquote, is at. Okay. So with that said, one of the things that we have noticed is that there is a huge gap between the average list price from the original list date, let me be very specific, to the actual sales price once it ends up selling. And why I want to emphasize the original list date is because sometimes when properties are overpriced, they go through the hands of several realtors, and it takes, a year and a half sometimes for it to sell because it is so, overpriced. Now, again, going back to working with a seasoned agent, that is why, once you find that property or once you're starting to look in a certain area, your agent should be able to tell you like, hey, compared to the rest of the market, this is significantly overpriced, or this looks priced to sell, right? But overall, Miami-Dade County, the average original list price was $3,134,000, and the average sold price was $1,048,000 in May. So that is, that's a big gap. And
wait,
again,
so are you saying that? Right. So you're saying that? Well, maybe I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but what would be it's selling at what percent? And I guess based on the original list price and the sale price, what is the average percentage that the properties are selling at for single family homes? Like, are they selling within 10% of the asking price, within 15% of the asking price? What would you say the average is? Of the last
list price, meaning of the current?
No, I'm saying, and listen, it's going to, more or less, you can't get too granular, but from the original list price to the actual sale price, what would you say the
it's 40%, but
30%.
To the last,
the last list price,
to the 10%.
10%. So things are selling mostly within they always say be the firstborn, the second wife, and the third agent.
There you go. And by the way, the properties that are listed, that are priced to sell, have multiple offers. That is still happening across the board at every price point.
Of course.
They are getting their bidding on. And that is still happening across the board. Again, it comes down to when they're priced to sell. And, now people are really looking at that prior to even looking at property. So it's important that property is priced correctly. Average days on market are 56 overall, increased a little compared to last year. Well, increased 51% actually, and months of inventory is 3. So overall, a seller's market. Here's where it gets really interesting. This part I really like, because here we're looking at it by areas. It really varies. So what I did was I took what is considered the primary markets. What are primary single family home markets? The markets where people are coming to reside, we're here to, live most of the time full time, that have families or whatever the case may be, but this is their primary home. So those are the markets that I am highlighting and that I'm going to talk about a little bit. And then I'm going to get into the secondary markets, which is more of the condo market. Okay. So with the single family home primary markets, the areas that I was looking into were Miami Beach, Surfside, Miami Shores, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, and Pinecrest. it's very interesting because I'll just throw some numbers out here. I'm looking at Miami Beach as a buyer's market. We have 13.6 months of inventory, right? Versus you look at a Surfside and there's 4.2 months of inventory. It is a seller's market. Areas like Coconut Grove, areas like Pinecrest are neutral markets. And if you get a chance to see this presentation, you'll really see the difference in the price points and the average price per square foot. So again, going back to what you said originally, JoAnne, and how you started, this has to be so granular and so really into each area and into each different, variable that you can't really give a high level overview of what the market is doing, right? So again, every market is a little bit different. I don't know if you have any questions with regards to the different areas.
Well, I have so many questions. Where do I begin? So you're saying, like, for example, let's talk about Miami Shores for a second. Buyer or seller's market?
Miami Shores right now is a neutral market.
Neutral market. So that means that there's not necessarily a buyer's or a seller's market, but it would be safe to say that if something is priced right, it'll go fast.
It'll go fast, correct. Yes.
Where would you say... Go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to say that what's interesting is that the areas that are moving the most, especially at this time of the year, this is something important to keep in mind, is where you have the good schools. Because especially during this time of the year, people that are moving from out of state or people that are moving from other parts of the world that are starting school in August, well, this is the time to move, right? So that you can get yourself settled before August. So those are the areas right now that you really see a pickup. So good public schools, areas like Pinecrest have great public schools. Keepskeag has a great public elementary school. Like you start seeing, and that is every year, no matter what the market is doing, you see that uptick between April and July of these closed sales of people that are moving here from other areas. So the school portion plays a big role throughout this portion of the year.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about condos. What's happening in the condo markets, and actually let's talk about I would say luxury, and not luxury. And then maybe also before 2000 and after 2000. So let's talk about how we divide the condos and how we look at the market with the divisions.
So with luxury, I mean, what we're seeing across the board is with luxury, people really want something move-in ready. Especially the people that are moving here from the West Coast, like California. If they're going into that luxury market, they want to just bring their suitcases. They want to bring their toothbrushes, and they want something that's finished nicely, that's preferably brand new, right? That is furnished nicely so they really can just conveniently move on over and bring their things. So that is the product that really is moving right now, right, in terms of luxury. And the same applies with single family homes. Those are the homes that are really selling, are things that are move-in ready. If they're older, that are remodeled, people are not looking to do work right now. So yeah, that is a product that is moving the most. With regards to year built, definitely we see an upkick in everything that was built after 2015 specifically, but even more 2000 in general. I think that people start getting a little bit nervous with anything built prior to that because they know that, they might have recertifications coming up and assessments and so on and so forth. Don't get too scared of that, because I don't know if it's because I've lived here my whole life. I know that, what happened at Champlain was a tragedy. I'm not in any way disregarding that, but that's very rare, right?
Yeah.
And I think that for people that are okay with taking the quote unquote risk and that see the value of also living in an older condo, in my opinion, I would probably live in an older condo because I appreciate the spaces. I appreciate in places like Brickell, the location where you actually have land around your building and you can see the bay versus the newer product, which is more enclosed, right? So I think that for those people that can kind of see past all the fear that there is around this older building are going to find the deals and are going to find a lot of opportunities, in my opinion. And it's a great product. And special assessments, don't get scared of them. They're just investments into your property, right?
Yeah.
Just be aware of what's coming. Just have the information. And again, going back to the realtor, have your realtor help you. We have so many resources these days and so much public information on buildings, things they have to disclose that just started this year, like the condo registry. So there's so much information out there that it's not like you're going to be walking into something, the unknown.
Right. So would you say, like in Miami Beach luxury condo market, would you say it's a buyer's or a seller's market?
I still believe, because the higher you get into the price point, I think that the sellers got a little bit ambitious and, given what's happened in the past couple of years, and have overpriced a lot. So given the overpricement of a lot of things, not of everything, there is more inventory, right? There's slightly more inventory that is not moving. So you see things like, months of inventory slightly increased compared to the non-luxury. And that's the only reason. It's just people got a little ambitious with their.
Yes, I would agree 100% given my recent history on the luxury market. And it does feel like it's harder, I think, for these, for owners to realize that 2021 and 22 was an anomaly and things have softened a little bit. So it's like when they see that their neighbor was able to get so-and-so for their condo, and then now a year later, as an agent, we have to explain to them, you're not going to get that. I mean, that was a special time and they just hit the fire at the right time. They hit it at the right time, but it's not happening. And it sometimes, then what happens is people, their properties end up, I call it dying on the vine. They just sit on the market and they've been sitting over. I see in the luxury market, these units they're just sitting there like month after month, dying on the vine until finally, then you see what is moving, and what's moving are the luxury properties that are priced right. And it's just, I think it's a hard nut for a seller to swallow, to understand that they're not going to get what and they're still talking about 2022. It's like, well, we're knocking on 24's door here almost, like those prices aren't happening anymore. So it's, but again, it all comes down to pricing. If you price the property right, it will move. I mean, whether if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market in South Florida, transactions are always happening. People are coming in on a daily basis looking at our real estate market. So it comes down to pricing it right. That's it. And you need an agent that's going to help you figure out what that number is. And at the end of the day, I guess in a way, I wouldn't say that our job is easier, but the numbers don't lie. You could look at past sales and see what something has just sold for that's comparable to you, and you can kind of get an idea of where you should be at. Would you agree? I mean, you probably hear it all because.
I also see there's something with sellers that they really need to, there needs to be a mindset shift, because I think, and this has gone on forever, they get too stuck in what the neighbor is asking for, but what they don't realize is that the neighbor hasn't sold.
Exactly.
So they need to eliminate list price around them from their minds and just look at what have things actually sold for. So that's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
They get too stuck in people are asking and not what things they're selling for.
Absolutely. Well, being the sales manager, so Dominique's job is to manage all of us agents for Compass, and I swear to God, people, it's like herding cats. It's herding cats. So all day long, we're calling and texting and emailing her to help us with our listings and to help us with our stuff. And she hears it all. So she knows, she's really on the front line of what's going on with price reductions, with price increases, with getting stuff approved, all kinds of stuff. We're driving her nuts all the time. I don't know how she doesn't have gray hair by now. Maybe she does and she gets it dyed. But
fun.
Thank God she loves it. But so what are some of do you have any interesting, I always ask this to my guests, any interesting stories about price reductions or pricing or things that you've seen on the front line that you could share with us about just things that if just interesting things. What do you got? Anything?
So, sure. I mean, I could share a couple of things. So first of all, I started as a sales manager. I was an agent before on August 1st, 2020, right when the market a condo was not selling. You couldn't even get into condos. It was illegal. They were closed out, building wouldn't let you in. So walked into a market where I had a lot of agents that hadn't sold the thing almost all year. And the single family home market was starting to pick up. So then a year later, go into the craziest market that we've ever seen in the world, because the only place, and people forget this, that was open, not in the United States, in the entire world, was Miami. So what we saw in 2 years was just like so much craziness that I can't even explain to you.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited that I went through all of that, and to see all of my agents go from not selling anything for almost a year to now like not even knowing how they're going to do more sales because they just don't have more time has been really interesting. And now to see the market adjusting, which I feel it needed to, because in my opinion, I don't want to get too into it, there were a lot of things that were unrealistic and that didn't make sense. And so this adjustment definitely needed to happen. With regards to price reductions, which was your question, I mean, I feel that it's interesting how when somebody else comes in and tells the same story as the listing agent, it just resonates sometimes a little better. So I've been doing this more and more this year. I've been going with my agents to talk to their sellers about adjusting the price. And it's every single seller that I've spoken to and that I've gone in with my data, right? I'm not just talking to talk. I'm taking numbers to lie, as you said. Every single property that I visited with one of my agents, we've gotten a reduction for. And I just find it very interesting because I know the agent is doing their job and is taking the data and is doing what they have to do. They just have to sometimes hear it from another person. And interesting enough, the moment that they get that reduction, property goes under contract.
Of course. Of course. I mean, it happened. It happened to me, this past year, and we're actually going to be closing on that property that you helped me with next week. I'm happy to say. So, and also I think that's the difference with Compass. I mean, not to say that other brokerages don't do it, but we're so collaborative as a company, which is not the norm in real estate. Even within company, there's sometimes infighting or a lot of competition, and to be able to have our sales manager on call available to make time for us to actually go out of your way in your day to come and meet with our sellers and just explain the market from a different perspective. I mean, it just is, I would say, a Compass advantage, not only for the agents, but for the clients that we serve. Like, it's not just the one agent. You get a whole team within Compass that is there to serve, from marketing to closing to in between. So that's just my little plug for Compass. But going on to buyers and sellers, what's the conversation? What are the questions that you would suggest that they have within the conversations with their agents to try to understand the market analysis and how to get that that information? Like, if you are advising, let's say, a luxury seller on Miami Beach to help them price their home, what are some of the questions and elements of that market analysis that they need to be sure are included in the price assessment?
So a couple things. Number one, first of all, I just focus on the closed sales. Maybe look at the pendings, but we don't have a final close price at that point. I really try to focus on closed sales. Second of all, like I always tell people, I need to see the house. Even when I go with my agents to help them with a price analysis, it's especially when it's a single family home, because with condos, you could play a little bit more, but with a single family house, there's so many variables that can really make a difference to your pricing, right? So seeing the house and taking into consideration any updates that were done or the newness or so on and so forth. The other thing that is something that we're seeing a lot that needs to be taken into consideration is if it's a brand new, never lived in property versus something that is listed, that just got built, but has a tenant that even moved in 3 months ago. I see that people will pay a premium for something that's never been lived in. So I went to one recently where it had a tenant. The property was brand new, gorgeous home, had a tenant that had been living there in 3 months. And it took me a little bit to explain to the seller that, buyers, there is a difference. You can't really compare to something that sold that was like, here are your keys, you're the first person living here, versus something that's already been lived in, even if it's been for a few months. So that's another thing that we're seeing more and more.
So how much of a percentage, if you were like, okay, like how much of a percentage would you take off for that, for example? Like maybe 3-5% or?
I was thinking more around the 5%. So really doing those numbers, seeing if renting it really does make sense. And listen, some people won't even really look at it if it's been lived in. There's some people that really just want never been lived in. So, there's variables, but it's easier for me to say it's not my pocket, right? I'm not the one that's not receiving anything while the property sells. I understand that sellers are also in a position where they need to be receiving that income while the property sells. So, you have to in every situation.
I mean, listen, if they have it rented out and they're receiving that income, it kind of can offset the percentage that may be taken out because of the fact that it's rented and it's not, it's being used. It's brand new, but it's being used. So it kind of evens out, I would say.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
The furniture, right? If somebody wants a product, somebody wants a product that is move-in ready and that has the furniture. Lived-in furniture is really not the same as, brand new never. The house is one thing, the furniture.
Preach, because I mean, these sellers are like, oh, but it's furnished. And it's like, well, the furniture's 5 years old. Like who, like that's just placeholder furnture until they get their own furniture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay if it's 5 years old. You just can't compare it. It's not apples to apples with something that is a brand new product that's never been lived in, never been used.
Yeah. So, well, listen, I guess the takeaway on this is if you're a serious buyer or you're a serious seller, once you decide what you want, that's the other thing we were going to talk a little bit about. Like, for example, I have these buyers that I'm working with right now, and they have 1,000 questions about every building that we go into. And a lot of it, I'm able to look it up real quick on the Compass app, and I could tell them, oh, it was built, the year built, and I could tell them the maintenance and the taxes and everything. But I explained to them this, and this is something that buyers need to understand. Once you have been able to pinpoint the 1 or 2 or 3 buildings that you want to be in, or the area, like I know for sure I want to be east of US 1, in this area between this street and that street, and you can pin it down, then that's when you're going to go in and do your market analysis. Or you can't have your agent do the market analysis on 15 buildings. I mean, you got to narrow down, like first figure out what you want and then do the market analysis. Like, your agent's going to be doing 2, maybe max 5, because you should have it narrowed down so far that you're kind of figuring out now you have to figure out what's going on in the micro market of where you want to buy. Like, don't do an analysis first and then lead with your lifestyle, right? Lead with where you want to live.
That's the key word. The lifestyle. The lifestyle is everything. What I would do when I was an agent with out-of-town buyers is that they would come and they would say, I'm confused. I'm either Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Miami Shores, or, Belmead. 4 areas that, are far apart from each other, very different areas. So what I would do is I would take them to each area. I would show them the best house for their price point in that area. And I would ask them as homework to go to the park, if they have kids. If they don't have kids and they like walk around on the weekend, see what your commute is like. Do the lifestyle stuff. See if the Walgreens down the street is something that you're, lifestyle, lifestyle stuff. And then once you see what area, then let's go in and do the analysis, pick the right home. But it has to start with the person liking the lifestyle and liking the home versus the other way around, which people love doing, which is give me an analysis and I'm going to choose based on every market's going to do. Okay, this is Miami. Again, for the past 11 years, we've continued growing in price, and you're going to be fine wherever it is that you choose, but really try to go based on where you're going to enjoy your life the most.
Yeah,
you're going to be fine.
Yeah,
in Miami.
So visualize where you want to be. Get that clear, and then let your agent help you find the right neighborhood that's going to fit your vision. So get clear on what you want and then be able to communicate that to your agent, and then go from the macro market of Miami down to the micro market of where you determine. And listen, maybe you're like, between Coral Gables and Coconut Grove. Then you could kind of get more granular in what's happening with single family homes in each area, or condos or townhouses or whatever it is that it is. But again, this is a big purchase for buyers. and a big asset for sellers. And at the end of the day, this is what you need an agent for, to help make sense. And hopefully you get an agent that, has been in Miami for a long time and that knows the different neighborhoods and that can help you navigate the landscape of what's going on. And, I always remind buyers, at the end of the day, thank God in Florida, buyers don't have to customarily, they don't have to pay a commission to their agent. It's something that is a cost of doing business on the seller side. So for a buyer, it doesn't really cost you anything. All the agents have access to all the inventory, though. So what you don't want to do is have like 6 different agents working for you. Find one that you like, find one that you get along with, that you trust, and that agent is going to be able to give you access to every property that you want to look at in Florida, really, but in South Florida. So that would be the easiest thing to do. It's not like one agent has the inventory in this area and the other agent has an inventory in that area. So although...
I want to correct you with something, and it's a plug to Compass, but I have to because we are unique in this way. Except with a Compass agent, you have access to the private exclusive network.
Oh, yeah.
A whole network of market properties that only Compass agents have access to.
This is true.
I think we have like 50, 75 like beautiful properties right now in Miami-Dade County that are off market and are actually within our site, and a Compass agent can send to you. So I think that also is big difference. No other company has that.
No other company has that. Yeah, we like to keep it in the family. So listen, Dominique, thank you so much for being with me today. I've had such a great time learning more about it. And I just thank you. I can't thank you enough for everything that you do too. Every sales meeting, she comes with these numbers and she educates us and she explains it. And she's really passionate about it. I'm so glad that we have you on our team to make sense of what's going on in the market. And then for our listeners, I'm going to put together the report that she has that she was kind of working off of during this podcast. And we're going to have it for you as a link in the description of the podcast. So we'll put that in a Google Dropbox or something like that. And you could just click on it and have access. And thank you so much. Well, that kind of does it for this episode. I think it's like our 12th episode, huh, Monica? Yeah. And we're everywhere. Everywhere you look for a podcast, we're there. So it's Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you look for a podcast, Buying Miami, Life, Love, and Real Estate is there. Dominique, thank you so much for being with us. And we'll catch you guys next time.